Blackfoot Communications is actively supporting the communities we serve across Montana and Idaho. We are installing hundreds of miles of fiber in our service territories, increasing the broadband experience in our rural communities. We are delivering remote workforce solutions for our business communities. We are creating new, innovative solutions for our local entrepreneurs and enterprise organizations. Learn how your company can benefit. Call today at 541-5000 or go to blackfootbusiness.com. Blackfoot Communications. Connect to more.
A home and home with Eastern Washington. And so I don't know if you just want to start it with just kind of the week ahead and take it from there.
No problem. Good morning, fellas.
Hey, Trav.
Here, before we even go into the Eastern Washington, I'll do this. I'll address the elephant in the room because I know that's really what you guys want to know about. You're not too worried about the Eastern Washington game. You want to know about Michael Steadman. I'll give you this, and you guys know me. All team business always stays in the locker room with me. I'll never be one to comment about a young man's experience. Unless it's all positive and it ends positive, right? Their futures are important to me, whether they finish their career here or not. Their futures are always going to be important to me, and all statements will be representative of that. But I'll share this with you. There's 171 players in the portal, Division I players in the portal right now, and it's February. There are a number of those kids that are in the portal and still playing on the team that they're leaving. That 171 represents almost half of the Division I basketball teams in the country. So, there's two things I think that jump out that play a role in the state of college basketball and transferring. One is it's basically open free agency with the portal and now the automatic eligibility with a waiver. And when you see the transfers at the NBA level, when you see the transfers at the high major level that have allowed guys to make decisions mid-season that they don't want to be a part of something anymore, and obviously in the NBA could be playing for another team 24 hours later, at the college level, be playing for another team the next season, and there's no sense of accountability, it's easy to quit. And in my opinion, the way things go, they're almost encouraged to move on when things aren't going the way they want. So there's that piece. I think the University of Montana falls into a category that a small percentage of college basketball programs fall into. That's expected to compete for championships, high level of support emotionally, financially, and then there's a level of individual expectation that comes with being here. When you have those types of expectations, there's a standard that you're waking up to every day. It's hard if you're not built. If you haven't experienced that earlier in your life before you get here, you have to learn how to become that person. You have to learn how to train, motivate yourself, and handle adversity in the face of a program that is on the front page of the newspaper and often the opening statement to the news, whether that's TV, whether that's radio, whether that's Twitter or any other social media. And it's something that most of these young men have never experienced before coming here. The few that have, Donovan Dorsey and Ahmaad Rory, came from Pac-12 programs that had won championships. The rest either transferred laterally or up. And sometimes up might be coming from a larger, more competitive conference, and you could put quotations on that, but maybe a losing program. And so this is very difficult for a lot of people, and it's not for everyone. We tell every kid that we recruit, this isn't for everyone. And it's probably harder for a kid transferring in than it is for a high school kid to have success here and be okay with the process. Because a lot of times when guys are transferring, they're running from something didn't work out, and they're looking for immediate gratification. And that's not necessarily going to happen when you come to a program that recruits high school kids at a high level like we do. And I think it's very difficult for juniors and seniors to transfer in and compete with freshmen and sophomores, and sometimes find themselves sharing roles that they want. Therefore, you've seen some guys come here and not be successful, and you see the same thing nationally. And I wouldn't say not be successful from my regard. I think that if you're playing a large role on a good basketball team, that is success. If you're graduating from college and staying out of trouble and moving forward as someone that will contribute to society and be a positive example to people from your community, your family, that is success. But it's unfortunate that the exposure, the following, the expectation that comes with college basketball these days has made it very difficult for a young man to see success as anything other than being an all-conference player and playing professional for money. And when the light at the end of the tunnel is a little dimmer than they may have expected, some bail out. And it's just unfortunate that we've had a couple of those here in our time. But we've won championships with that happening, and we expect to continue to do the same. So I'm not going to make any statements about any individuals. Obviously, some young men started off here that aren't here now. But I think that when you look at track record, you knew that there was a little bit of a gamble in the process because it was in their history.
Well, I want to ask you about that concept of making it easy for kids to quit, because I talk to coaches at every level of sports now, and it seems like it's this almost an epidemic, right? Where we're making it easy for guys to walk away. And part of sports, it seems to me, is learning how to go through the adversity, learning how to lose, learning that maybe sometimes things don't work out your way. So, I mean, as a coach and a mentor, what do you think of that? I mean, it seems like it's very frustrating for guys in your position that it is so easy for guys to just, move on to the next greener pasture.
It's changed a lot. And it's not just the athlete, it's musical chairs with coaches too. Coaches getting fired in a short period of time with not a lot of time to develop a program. Coaches jumping from one job to the next as quickly as possible, chasing money or running from the posse. And so I think that played a role in it in the past. The young men were making commitments to coaching staffs. And when those coaches left, kids were moving. That's changed. There was a time when I was at Cal, when we evaluated a transcript, I tossed transcripts that had more than one high school on it. On occasion, there might have been a kid that was a high school kid, senior year, went to prep, to play at a higher level or to continue with his development. Maybe he was at a program that just wasn't helping him with that or academic growth, but it only changed one time. The transfers that we took, we didn't have any at Old Dominion, but at University of California, they had only changed schools one time. Whether that was in high school or in college, it was one change. And that was different. Now it's gotten to a point where it's very difficult to find a transcript that has the same high school. And it's very difficult to find a transfer that hasn't changed in high school and in college. It's just becoming the norm to move on when things aren't going your way. And it's very difficult to manage because if you say that you're not going to take those kids, you're going to have a hard time fielding a talented team because they're hard to find even at the high school level. And so you just got to research and dig in and hope that this is the last change. And all of the kids that we brought in, the young men we brought in, I think are good people. And I think that they had the right intent when they came. I just think that this is a very difficult place when you want to be an all-conference player, when you want to be somewhere where they expect to win. The pressure to succeed here is higher than most mid-major programs and most high-major programs in the country. And they think they want this. They think they want to be somewhere where there is no professional sport and you're the only show in town. But until you get here, it's difficult. Same thing with football. Same thing with women's basketball. When they say they want to go play in front of thousands of fans, it's one thing to want it. It's another thing to be expected to perform in front of those groups. And so I just think there's a lot of things that play a role into decisions that these young men and women are making. And I just don't think there's a lot of people that are telling them to stay put and write it out and trust the process. And so therefore they move.
I have one other question on this concept, because I talked to Coach Ray about this last week on my show. He was kind of saying, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But you have to play the game because that's the way that the game is going when it comes to the transfers. You look at Weber, right? I mean, they recruited a whole new starting lineup from the portal, basically. So what do you think of the impact it's having on the Big Sky? Because, I mean, right now you have multiple teams in the league that are competitive teams that are made up almost exclusively of transfers.
There was a trend a while back where, some of the championship teams had transfers, one or two that they were fielding and were their better teams. Northern Colorado made their move when they brought in a couple good pieces. And then it gave time to those sophomores and juniors that became future first team all conference and player of the year candidates to develop. Right? Radabah was given time as a role player for 2 to 3 years before the ball was put in his hands to develop, and bringing a transfer in created that opportunity. And fortunately, as a high school basketball recruit, he was patient and he allowed the process to happen. And so if you get the right combination, it works. I think if you look at Larry Kristoviak, Randy Ray, those are coaches that do it the right way. And they're bringing in high school kids and on occasion a junior college transfer or something like that. And they've had kids leave. And maybe doing it the right way is harder. Right? If I want you to get up in the morning and go to class every day, I want you to act a certain way in certain situations. I want you to be about the program and about the team and about the name on the front of the jersey, not the back. That's hard for a lot of guys that have never been asked to do that. And those are just examples that I'm familiar with, but those guys have had a lot of change. Are they supposed to change who they are as coaches? Or do they just continue to look under rocks and find the right kids? I think they continue to look under rocks. Randy's evolved a little bit this year with some transfers. I don't know that that's just the way he's going to go moving forward. But it's worked out for him up to this point. But he's had some transfers that didn't work out. And so I've always said to finish first, it takes a lot of luck, whether that's physical health, mental health, or the right group that's about the right things chemistry-wise. And with the pandemic, chemistry's not built. This is not a year to build chemistry. These guys, they're not spending any time together. They're not spending time with us. They're not coming to our homes and eating. There's just a lot of things that aren't taking place that normally would bring a team together, much less just get through the year. And this is a get through the year situation that's very difficult. And you've seen it at a high level. There's some coaches that have basically come out and made some statements about their players and benched guys and suspended guys and basically come out and just said, hey, his head's not right. He's not in the right place. He's not about the right things. I don't do that. I just write it out. And if they don't want to be here, they don't want to be here. We just keep moving forward. But we've had all conference players walk away and win a championship.
Does everything that you mentioned with the changing landscape of transfers and everything, does that make you reevaluate how you attack that moving forward?
No. I've always believed that a championship program is built around high school recruits, and an occasional transfer here and there to fill voids is necessary because it's hard to have young men be patient enough to wait their turn. We had 2 kids that were playing 15 minutes a game on potential championship teams and one on a championship team that didn't want to wait till their sophomore year to get to 20 to 25 minutes. And when that happens, they need to be replaced by probably someone that has some experience, whether that's junior college or at the college level, because you're not going to replace that kid in April. You're not going to get a high school kid that can play 15, 20 minutes a game for you and contribute to a championship in April. The kid's not out there. He signed with someone in November. Or the ones that are available are going at a very high level. And so you just have to, you have to hope that maybe a couple kids that are transfers or kids that you've recruited in the past or come from high school or AAU programs that you've had success with have been coached by coaches that understand what you're about as a program, as a coach, and support you. And when you're fortunate to get that, you'll be successful. And that's what Ahmad Rory and Donovan Dorsey were. They came from places that understood us. Their high school coaches, their college coaches, their AAU coaches were all people that understood me and had been down this road with me. And I think that that's important if you have an opportunity to bring those guys in. And they're just, Oregon, Washington haven't had those guys for us in the last couple of years. And, with Romar moving on, it's a different process from Washington. Oregon hasn't really had as many transfers that have transferred down, with the exception of one that went to Pepperdine a couple of years ago. And so it's just been a little different landscape. But like I say, that's all luck. You can't just sit back and go, oh, I'm waiting for Washington to have a guy for me or Oregon to have a guy for me. It's not going to happen that way. Kids are going to go in the portal. You're going to see what's in there. You're going to cipher through it. And if you decide to take one or two, you're just going to hope it works out. The reality is those guys need to be good enough and contribute enough at a high level to be happy.
Moving forward, how excited are you, and what are you looking forward to as far as maybe more minutes from a Mac Anderson or lineups with a, Bannon, Owens, Carter Hollinger together? What do you, expect to fill those shoes, and what are you excited to see in that regard?
Haven't some of those shoes already been filled?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to keep doing what we've been doing. Grind, improve, stick together, hang in there together, love one another in the locker room, support one another on the court, and live with the results, and wake up the next day and fight the fight again and reevaluate where we're at from day to day. But I think there's some young guys that have been playing a lot better. I think, Mac's an example of someone that's just hung in there and stayed committed to the program and the process. And when his opportunities arrive, he gives us what he's got. And sometimes he's played well and sometimes he hasn't. And the best thing about it is it hasn't changed his attitude when he's played well or he hasn't. And I think his teammates have supported him through the roller coaster ride. And that's what makes this sport fun. And that's really what athletics is about, is the trials and tribulations that come and go, and the stories that you can tell after the fact about how you prospered through that. And whether that's currently as a student athlete or when your career is over, those stories are going to be are going to play a major role in someone's life coming behind them. They don't know that. We tell them that, but they don't know that. But that day will come for all of them.
You said we weren't as interested in Eastern Washington. I think that's a lie. I'm very interested in that, especially calling that game this weekend. So I want to get your thoughts on the Eagles. And obviously, Jacob Davison was kind of like the preseason MVP, but they have getting production from maybe different players, or it's distributed a little bit differently than we might have thought at the start of the preseason. What makes them so dangerous when you look at them?
He's accepted his role. You have someone that I think it probably was unanimous by the coaches, would be my guess. I don't remember the ballots, but I'm pretty sure every coach in the Big Sky went into the season looking at him as the MVP. And he still could be that. But he's coming off the bench, and there's other guys that statistically are having a better year. But from what I've seen, anytime they're in crunch time and it's down the stretch, he's on the floor and the ball's in his hands. So his value hasn't changed. But I think that that's what's made them more dangerous is they've had young players develop that have moved into new roles. And the upperclassmen like Davidson and Aiken have made the most of the roles that they have and have accepted the fact that there's some young fellas that have gotten better, and it has made them a very dangerous team. They're very versatile offensively. They're explosive. They have multiple guys that can score 20. They have multiple guys that could get double-figure rebounds, and it makes them a very difficult team to slow down. We feel we've had the formula to slow them down, but you got to go out and execute it. One thing that Shantae's done a good job of is made adjustments, and he's gone in to every game with an adjustment here or there that has prepared his team to be successful. And we're going to have to adjust to his adjustments. We're going to have to be good out of timeouts. We're going to have to be very intent about the details that it takes to beat a team like this.
As you kind of go forward, Travis, it just seems like the players that you mentioned. So there's a lot of pressure coming here. If something happens, it's going to get covered. It's just how it is, kind of in this market. And it seems like the players you guys have, they're all pretty focused, driven individuals. So as you approach a rivalry game like that, and news like this happens, is it hard to keep the team from distractions, or do they chug along kind of as normal?
Kyle, let me ask you a question. Okay. Was this news to you? Did this catch you off guard?
To be honest, no, not really.
Okay, so do you think it caught my team off guard?
Probably not, but it's just I'm curious if it's a distraction that guys have to block out, or if they just move forward as usual.
These things are never distractions because we always have these conversations. We talk about these things all the time. And we're a family. So families have conversations about things that are difficult. And so, when you have adversity in your family, Kyle, you can look at your family members and have pretty good feel for how they're going to react and how they're going to handle that adversity. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would say that.
We're the same way. So our guys have been prepared for opportunities. Our guys have understood that this has been a very difficult year for everyone, and we're going to make the most of every opportunity that we have. And we know that the adversity is going to continue to come, and we're prepared to fight through it. And so I haven't seen anyone look back. No one's walked in the office with questions. We had a short meeting. No one had any questions. We had a really good practice that day. So I think the team has moved on.
Do you think it could almost do the opposite and galvanize? I was listening to a podcast today talking about how they think Duke might take a step forward once Jalen Johnson kind of left, and because it kind of can bring the team together, not really the distraction part, almost kind of the opposite.
I don't think we've been distracted by it, is my point, though. Like, I don't, we've had some guys that it's been a rough year for. He's not the kid you're talking, he's not the only kid, the only man that has had a rough year. Our entire team has had a rough year. We've had physical health issues, mental health issues. We've been locked in rooms, basically imprisoned for short periods of time with COVID. It's been a difficult year for these young men. And so that the pandemic has been more difficult for them than wins and losses and the adversity that basketball presents. That's been the easiest part. And I honestly believe that that's really our issue. If you really want to dive into each of these guys individually and where everyone is and all these things, they all have had some circumstances that they've never dealt with in their life, ever. And they're away from home and they don't have us to hug them. They can't come sit on my couch and have a meal and watch a football game or watch a basketball game to help them get through the adversity that they're going through. This is the first time in college athletics that none of these athletes have had that. And in all honesty, that's what's gotten all of these student athletes through it. Football, basketball, volleyball, hockey, whatever sport. All of these young men and women have had coaches' couches to go sit on and TVs to watch and hot food to eat and their families to engage with and get their mind off the things that have distracted and the things that have been difficult for them. They don't have it right now. So now you are seeing a result of young men and women that are on their own when they're not ready to be on their own.
How do you view the matchup with Eastern just in recent history? And what's funny? How do you view the and how do you view the rivalry? And because I think it's for a lot of fans it's been a lot of fun with you guys in Eastern.
It's what college basketball is about. And that's what's special about Montana. Is there anyone in our conference that has more rivals than us? Right. And so that's the fun part, is we should have had 3 rivalry weeks out of 4. We lost one of them with Montana State. We got Weber, and that was fun. Would have been more fun if it were home and home. And now we get a peer one. Obviously no fans, but we get a chance to go on the road and then come home and play them. They're all different for different reasons, right? The in-state rivalry is big because it's the most meaningful one for our community. The Weber one is big because of history, the history of the Big Sky. The Eastern one is more important to our current student athlete because they can feel it. It's more recent. For us to have played them in 3 championship games in 5 years, for us to have been in their way for the 2 last championships, when you talk about complete seasons, we're kind of their speed bump. But at the same time, they're our motivation to stick with it through adversity right now, and maybe they can help us get it going. And Weber was that last week. If we can play well and get through the week and look back at it and feel like we were successful and we did what we came to do, we're going to have momentum going into the tail end of conference. So it's an opportunity for both of us. They've got some guys that haven't beaten us that are looking for their first win. We have some guys that are looking to extend a streak. And that was the one thing that gave us confidence going to the conference tournament last year was they won, but they hadn't beaten us. And so we had a sense of confidence going to the conference tournament that if we could get to Saturday and see them, that we were going to have more confidence than the champion. So there's a lot of ways to spin it. This is a big game. This is a fun game. This is something that brings a level of intensity that no other game is going to bring this year for us. And Shante and I, we enjoy playing each other. So it's a chess match that we both look forward to.